Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Conversational Witchcraft with me, Dawn, the Kitchen Witch. Okay, before we get going, I have to remind you to make sure you subscribe to this channel, hit all the like buttons. You can now support this podcast if you love what I'm doing here and you want me to continue to bring you great information and inspiration and conversations and magic and all this kind of good stuff. Support this podcast, support this link, hit subscribe. You can buy me a coffee. I love my coffee. And don't forget, you can learn all about me and food magic and kitchen witchcraft by visiting me directly at cucinaaurora.com or following me on social media at Cucina Aurora on Facebook, Instagram, and the Tickety Talk. Okay, friends, today we are welcoming Dave Eierman. Dave Eierman is a licensed acupuncturist, shamanic practitioner, certified life coach, teacher, and spiritual wood craftsman. He works with clients individually, combining personalized coaching with acupuncture and energy work to help his clients come into a greater alignment with their most soulful self and reawaken them to their innate spiritual connection to the natural world. He teaches classes and workshops with the same intention, and he also combines his shamanic knowledge and experience to craft unique wood pieces of medicine, including altars, power, animal, pyrography, and tarot supplies. Dave, my friend,
Hello, hello.
my new bestie.
My new, I've known you forever, but I've known you for a week,
Yeah,
essentially.
it's
Yeah,
really, really crazy. So, David and I again, I know you like Dave, but I can't not call you David. I don't know.
it's
Again, if
cool.
it bothers you, tell me.
We're good.
Okay. So we met at this really cool little tiny event at Circles of Wisdom in Methuen, Mass, like what, 3 weeks ago?
hmm
And literally you walked to the door and I was like, I know that guy. How do
hmm
I know that guy? Like immediately, like vibrationally bestie.
I walked in, I'm like, oh, this chick seems cool. Like, goes immediately. I'm like, oh, nice. Because I've been to a bunch of those fairs in the past, and you don't quite know who's going to be in the tables next to you.
Yes.
And there's always that assessment of like, okay, how much of my professional self do I have to be? Do Can I let my guard down at all and just
Right.
be real in some of these ways? And I saw you like, oh, nice. Okay. This
Yeah.
person feels solid immediately.
Yeah. I just felt like immediately like I knew you. And then it turns out that we have our birthdays are 10 days apart. And you grew up in New Jersey and I grew up in New York. So like, oh, and sirens. So in the background, we can hear
Yeah,
sirens. So it feels like home.
yeah, yeah, right. It brings me back the
Ah,
sweet sounds of city life.
sweet sounds of the Jersey Turnpike.
Mm.
Mm. We used to, so my husband and I, we used to, long story short, there was a brief period of time in our lives where we lived in this temporary apartment after we lost our home to a fire before we moved to New England. We were in this little temporary housing unit that was butted up against a bowling alley
Mm. hmm
and like a main road and is a town on Long Island called Center Reach. And we would be up in the middle of the night hearing like you could hear the bowling balls and the pins resetting. You could hear people like in the parking lot. They would just get drunk and they would smash beer bottles, and we would
Mm.
look at each other and go, "Ah, the soothing sounds of Center Reach." So like
Yeah.
whenever now that we hear, it's so rare that we hear like sirens going by our neighborhood here in like little rural New Hampshire that we're like, oh my God, what happened? What happened?
hmm
What happened? We're like, if you grew up in where we grew up, that's just the way things sound.
Right, all the time. And I work on a main road now. So actually, literally, the building next to mine is the fire department. So there are sirens that happen pretty regularly. Where I live in the woods, so I rarely hear it. I'm a pretty side street area, so I rarely hear it in my life. It's still been an adjustment for me in this office of hearing the sirens again.
Right. So you
Yeah,
grew up in New Jersey. How long have you
I
been
did.
living in New England?
I've been living in New England, wow, 18 years. I've actually been here just about as long as I've lived in Jersey.
Isn't it the best?
I like it a lot. Yeah. Yeah. It is the most home that I've ever felt in any place that I've lived.
Like, no shade to my tri-state friends, but
No, it's no shade to the friends. It's no shade to the people. It's it's just the whole everything of it. And it's just I'll say it's just not for me. I'll say it that way. Because there's some
agree.
people who thrive in the city environment and
Mhm.
they really love that. And like God bless them, cool. I'm not going to tell you what you're doing is bad or wrong.
Yeah,
It's just not for me at all.
I agree. I agree. There's too much crowding, too much people, too much construction, too much noise, too just everything for me just always felt like it was too much. And
Yeah.
then not enough of the things that feed my soul. Like
Hmm.
I don't like cities. I don't mind going to a city for a purpose, right? If I'm going to go to New York and I'm going to see a Broadway show, freaking awesome. If I'm going to go to Boston and go to a museum, I'm excited, right?
Hmm.
But I need to be around nature. I need to see trees. I need to see animals. I need to be where there's air. And I remember, just even as a teenager or a young adult going into New York City with my friends and just being like, ooh, I can't
Hmm.
see the sky. Like I feel like I can't
Hmm.
see the sky, It's just too much.
It's really interesting. I had a reaction to it as a kid of, yes, it's too much, but also my mentality is like, I should like this. This is what I should be moving towards, right? Everybody's all about the city, the city, the city, the city. I should lean into this more. I should like this more. And I never really did. And people would always say, like, oh, where did you grow up? I grew up outside of New York City. Oh, did you love the city? I'm like, no, I
Oh,
didn't. And, I we'll get into this obviously, but I love nature and I do shamanic work, and that's such a big part of my life now. It took me until my teens before I really started to appreciate nature. I was outside a lot as a kid, very grateful to have grown up before the internet really kind of took off
yeah.
and I was able to just be outside, just be home by dark. And that was kind of how I grew up and
Yes.
playing sports outside a lot as a kid, and I loved it. But I didn't really appreciate like hiking and being in a forest and the teachings and the wisdom of nature until I was in my teen
Yeah.
years. So it's a really interesting. I didn't really fit in with the city, but I hadn't found the nature, which I do fit in with now,
Mhm.
until much later in my development.
I have always hated the city.
Mm.
And I again, like I'm going to go for a purpose, great, but like I think especially for people that are maybe empaths, being in a city
Hmm.
for too long is really hard. It's just too much energy. The noise is too much. And the disconnection between spirit and nature, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
I love that you said you grew up, kind of for me, kind of feral, right? We, was really like go because we're the same. Go outside, go out in the neighborhood. The door is closed. Come back at dark. Like that's literally how we 80s and
Hmm.
90s kids grew up, right?
Hmm.
Especially in suburban tri-state area. Our
Yeah,
parents were working. Nobody was home after school. Just you were either watching TV or you were out at the, digging dirt in the neighbor's yard, right?
right. Yep. Playing kickball in the streets, playing what was that? Oh, I can't remember the name. You could throw a ball if you hit like it wasn't
Dodgeball.
kickball. Dodge wasn't monkey in the middle
Okay, the
or
middle, Red
something like that.
Rover.
But like these are that's what I just grew up playing, and
Yeah.
so being outside all the time. But I lived not a mile, a block away from a major highway that goes, and so there was constant noise.
Yeah.
And when you kept saying like noise, and as an empath, the other word that comes up from your mind is like it's artificial
Yeah.
artificial noise. I can be around a lot of noise. I can be around a large waterfall or
Mm.
a brook or the ocean where it's really loud, but that's a different kind of noise as opposed to the man-made, artificial,
Yeah.
mechanical, motorized noise. Like,
Chaos, all of it going
yeah,
at the same time. There's no rhythm to it, there's no breath
hmm,
to it. Like you could
it's
sit by an
harsh.
ocean
Hmm.
and you can feel the heartbeat of the ocean and you
Yeah,
can tune into that. You can't sit in the middle of downtown Manhattan and find a heartbeat. Like you just
it's a challenge. It's a challenge. I will say that last time I was in New York was about 4 years ago. My parents celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, so we all kind of
yeah.
coalesced, and found my way to a little park and just I talked to the trees at the park
Yeah.
and I laid down on the grass at the park. I was like, it wasn't Central Park. It was a tiny little small one, it was maybe a block
Yeah.
wide. And that was so nice. Like, oh, I can find a little bit of haven of
Yeah.
earth here, a little bit of connection to the natural world amongst the concrete jungle.
So you said that you didn't really discover that connection to nature until you were in your teens. Do you remember how that happened?
I went to sleepaway camp and I went to sleepaway camp in upstate New York and it was a it was over a couple of years. The first time was a week, and where we spent, you know, 3 days out in the woods hiking. And there was another time that we were just kind of living in these cabins.
Yeah.
And then the following year was 2 weeks. And the next following after that was 4 weeks. And it opened my eyes up to a side of me that I didn't really know that was there. And one of the trips we did a 10-day hike. It was a group of us. We were counselors in training. We were 15 or
Oh,
16,
wow.
and part of this is that they gave us one day completely by yourself, 24 hours completely by yourself in the middle of the woods. And just sitting there and meditating with the tree. I had no formal training in meditation. I just kind of just sat up with my back against the tree to do a crossword puzzle, actually. And all of a sudden, I was meditating, and all of this stuff kind of came through and happened. And I kind of came to, I'm like, what was that? That was pretty wild.
Wow.
And like, okay. And then that night, we had didn't have enough tents for everybody, so I just slept under a tarp. And I woke up in the middle of the night, it's pitch black, and I hear something rustling in the leaves not too far from me. And I said, well, if I move, if I get startled and move, that's gonna not be a good scene. So let me just try and go back to sleep. And I did. I woke up and I was fine. And I had all of these little moments of seeing a tiny little flower kind of coming up amongst this old growth forest and thinking about this flower that was in this tiny little thin, it was maybe 3 inches tall, tiny little thin stem,
Wow.
and just having all of these thoughts about it, about like, hey, this is the next generation of these forests, of these trees that are 100 years old. And I wasn't trained in this. This is just where my thoughts were going. And that sort of
Wow.
started to open me up to, oh, this is kind of cool. I like this.
Okay, so that's incredible because I'm sorry, what 15-year-old boy is like finding that kind of insightfulness, finding that kind of connectivity? I mean, of all the boys that were on this trip with you, do you think any of them had these sort of, life altering moments? I mean, who again, you're 15 years old. Most people don't have life altering moments at 15. We're especially, listen, I know what I was doing when I was 15. Okay. I was thinking about boys and going in the
hmm
mall and, hanging out with my friends. I wasn't really even open to understanding those deeper meanings. Why do you think this stuff came through for you at that particular time in your life?
That's a great question. By the way, whenever someone says that's a great question, I've always had an issue when somebody says that because, like, of course it's a great question. I asked it, I thought about it, but when I say that, like, when I'm saying that's a great question because it's something I haven't thought of before. I haven't
Yeah.
even thought in that way before.
Right. Like, why
Be-
you? What is it about you that allowed you to be open to those things? Because those things were all around everyone that was there.
yeah, I don't know what everybody else's inner experience was, and I don't know what everybody else's prior experience of connection to nature was because this was maybe 100 miles from where I lived. So I don't know where everybody else was coming from
Yeah.
and what their existing relationship with the natural world was. And before I answer your question, I'll say that once I got back to my normal, quote unquote, normal life back in Jersey and went back to high school, I lost that connection.
Mm.
I didn't go around like marveling at trees when I was back thinking about girls. I was thinking about what I have to study, and I was back to the normal everyday teenage life. The reason I say that is because now I look at it, I can see that was like a window opening, like a door opening to me that I didn't really realize what it was until way later. I think the way I answered your question before is a language I hadn't used before. It's kind of like it helped open me up to a dimension of myself that I didn't even know was there.
Yeah.
So I got a glimpse of it, and then it went away, and then it came back, and it went away, and now it's back much more. But I think there was a it's I think honestly it's just who I am, and it's just like to be connected to nature is vital for me for my own well-being. So
Yeah.
that grew over time, and I think that was just a window for me to open to that when I was 15.
So it's very interesting because I interview people from all different spiritual paths, and everyone kind of finds their path in very similar, what in my experience, in very similar ways. They had these influences, they had this kind of moment, and then they found a path and they went, oh, that kind of feels comfortable. That sort of makes sense for me. But there are different paths that are related to being connected to nature in this way, right? There's animism, there's witchcraft, there's, Buddhism, there's all these different paths. Why a shamanic path? And how did you make the leap from I'm a guy who likes nature and hiking to I want to be a shaman and literally work in this spiritual path? And also, if you could, for our people listening, define what shamanism means for you, because there's a bunch
Yeah,
of different kinds of shamanism, right? And
yeah.
different paths and all that stuff.
Okay, all right. How do I be brief? Because there's that's a question I can answer just that probably in about an hour. So I want to first initially just say like I am not a shaman. I'm a white boy from Jersey, so I don't have claim to that title. For me, that word, I mean, the origin of that word is from the native Siberian people.
Mm-hmm.
And as English is, just kind of took that word and has applied it to any medicine man or medicine woman of an indigenous community anywhere on the globe. But obviously, the Lakota don't speak the language of the native Siberians, and those in present day Korea or New Zealand don't speak the same language. So they have their own terms for it based on that community. And I feel like the word shaman has got a connotation to it, which I don't really want to step into.
Mm-hmm.
Of I've had if I had that on my website, and I've never promoted myself as a shaman, as oh, a shamanic practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
a shamanic coach, shamanic teacher, because the tools and the perspectives of shamanism, I think that's for everybody. But people would reach out to me like, "Oh, I need a shaman. Someone just put a curse on my mom. Can you take care of that?" Like that's
No.
not the work that I do.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not it. So
Yeah.
I steer clear of that term for myself.
Love
I
it.
would say that I would define shamanism broadly as mankind's oldest spirituality and medicine. And it is practiced in all these different forms all across the globe, but it is inherently animistic, it's spiritual in nature. It looks at our divine connection to the natural world and working in harmony with it.
Mm-hmm.
There are plenty of beautiful, lovely, magical, incredible things that come with shamanism, and I love those. And I think that certainly the where that I go more in my life is the everyday
Mm-hmm.
connection to the land. If I go for a run in the morning, and I give a stretch on the oak tree in the front of my yard, I will ask permission of the tree every single time, even though I've been doing it for years. There's a relational aspect to it, an
Mm-hmm.
empowering aspect to it. So there is shamanism that's local to Peru and local to Africa or parts of Africa and Haiti and Lakota, Seminole, Maori, all over the world that have their own rites and practices and beliefs and associations with the directions and animals that are unique to that nation. However, there is a thing called core shamanism, which an anthropologist named Michael Harner developed over his life, where he studied with all of these different tribes all over the world, and he said they all have the same
Mm-hmm.
setup.
Yeah.
Their specific medicines, their specific teachings of what bear medicine is or what the East represents. That's unique tribe to tribe, but the underlying understanding that of our position in nature, of what of what shamanic journeying is, that of how to understand what healing and health is in the natural world from a spiritual plane, what the role of the medicine man or medicine woman is, that's the same. So he, with permission, created core shamanism, and that is what is mostly taught to non-natives in the
Mm-hmm.
world,
Mm-hmm.
and it's these core principles of shamanism, and that called to me. The other part to your story of how did I come to it is the other big catalyzing event for me. So I had these experiences with nature in my mid-teens, and then I went to college. When I was a sophomore in college, I nearly drowned. I fell overboard when I was whitewater rafting, got stuck in an eddy,
Oh
and
my goodness.
nearly drowned. Yeah. Terrifying, obviously, to the core moment. And yeah, I've written about it. It was obviously
Yeah.
panic to the 9 yards. And was that even to the 9 yards? Just panic to the nines, panic
Yeah.
to the,
I
yeah,
don't,
whatever.
to
Yeah.
the nth
Uh-huh.
degree. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
there,
a
sure.
horrifying near death experience will fuck you up.
Yep. And I remember sitting in this cafe after this all happened. Obviously, I'm still alive, or maybe I died, and this has just been a really fucked up afterlife for the last 25 years. I don't know. Um, but I was sitting in this cafe afterwards, and I remember thinking, everything in my life is like it's done, and from this point forward, I'm going to prove things to myself. I felt like this hollow shell of like I'd had this facade up of the good son, of the good little kid, of the
Mm.
good boy, and that was all. It was a facade. I was a good kid, but it was so built on fear and got to make mom happy and don't upset dad and you know just
Fit,
be quiet and
fit
just
into the box. This is
yeah.
the box that you were born into, and this is what our expectations are of you. And do those things, and
Hmm.
everyone will be happy except
You
you.
get pat on the head and you get a
Yes.
praise and
Yes.
yes,
Why aren't you
this,
happy with this? We don't
right,
understand. What's your problem? Yeah,
right.
I get it.
And after that, I went back to college, and I remember this is when we actually had physical books, and I was in a bookstore, and I just found myself in the Buddhism section. So I like to say that these books fell off the shelf, but I got
Yeah.
3 books on Buddhism. This book called Medicine of the Cherokee called to me, and I took it off the shelf. I didn't, and so I started reading about Buddhism. I started meditating. I started being curious about qigong and some of these things, and that was the foundation for a few years. I didn't open that Medicine in the Cherokee book till like 4 years later.
Wow.
I wasn't ready for it, and then when I did, I'm like, okay, this is cool. This starts to add in like medicine of garlic, medicine of these different plants. Like, oh, there's a whole world here, and that started to open me up, and it felt I was just curious about it, and I think that's the best way I could describe it. It was different from this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get the degree. You're supposed to, you know, do these appropriate things to make mom and dad happy, to fulfill the check the boxes for society. And this was like, but I'm curious about this. This is interesting to me, and I kept going from there.
Doesn't it feel like a wonderful, like, I'm just gonna say this, and people are probably gonna be pissed off about it, but to live your truth in such a way, to take those ideas, to take what you learned and what was really interesting to you that you were curious about, and turn your entire life on its head and make that the thing that you do part of your identity, but also what you do to help others and make a living, right? And kind of like it feels, I don't know, I make my living as a professional kitchen witch. And it feels like a giant fuck you to
Mm-hmm,
that box that I was supposed to be in.
mm-hmm,
Right. And that
mm-hmm.
feels for me, and I don't know if you're the same way, for a little girl from New York, little Italian girl from New York who feels like I got something to prove, it's very satisfying to be able to say, no, this is who I am. This is what
Mm.
I want to do. This is how I want to live my truth and help other people. And you can't stop me because this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Do you get that?
I get it for you. My experience is slightly different. Not, but I'm with you on that. And I will say that I didn't turn my life on a head. This was a slow burn for me to get to this place
Mm.
because I went back and I was a high school teacher for a little bit. I was a
No,
computer
you were
programmer.
not.
Yes, I
No,
was.
you were
I
not.
taught I taught math. I taught algebra.
Oh, that's disgusting. Math is a four-letter word. We don't discuss it
Yeah.
here.
hmm
So
I think it's
gross.
beautiful, and I really think it's beautiful. And yes, there's a part of me that liked it as a kid because it was right and wrong, and
Mm,
it was clear,
hmm
and it provided
hmm
a structure to chaos. However, when I got more into math, I'm like, oh, there's some really cool things of math that are spiritual, that
mm,
do bridge the unreal and the real, or the non-physical and the physical. And that's the math that I got most excited about. Chaos theory you mentioned before. It's kind of
yeah,
like that shit. I'm like, oh, this is really freaking cool.
I can
So
see
that
that. I can see that.
there's something in there. But so I didn't turn my life on a head to become what I am. And I will say that doing each step of the way, where I took a step closer to this, where I left teaching to go to acupuncture school, where I made it more of my identity, was scary each time.
Oh yeah.
It felt good, but it was less of a fuck you to parents or to authority figures, and it was more freedom. It was more,
Mm,
I'm claiming this for myself. I'm freeing myself
hmm
from these shackles that I took on and then cultivated myself of supposed to.
hmm
And I'm still going through that process now. There's still things in my life now where I'm like shifting away from, is this actually what I want to do? Or is this
Right.
just because it's worked in the past, or just because I'm supposed to or expected to? That's a continual process for me.
Wow. Okay, we have to take a break because we have sponsors that we need to hear from. So we're going to take a quick break and we're going to be back with my bestie, shamanic practitioner, Dave Ironman. We'll be right back. We're back with my new bestie, Dave Ironman, and we're talking all about shamanic practitioner stuff. And we left off talking about the beauty of math, which like those words just feel weird in my mouth together.
That's fair.
But at the same time, like I completely get that because when we look at like earth and the foundation of earth and the foundation of the trees and just how things work, there is formula.
hmm
There is a sense of order to nature, right?
Yeah.
This plus this equals that. That's your basics, right? So I think it's a really interesting that you were able to sort of see that in your spiritual work and kind of find that synchronicity between these parts of yourself. And then you had mentioned you left teaching high school math to go to acupuncture school.
I did.
Okay, first I need to know what was it about acupuncture that drew you in? And then I want to understand where are the places between what you learned and you becoming an acupuncturist, where does that dovetail with the shamanic work?
Ooh, wow. Yes, wonderful questions that could take me a real long time to answer. I will. I definitely want to come back to the math piece in a little bit. I think that's an important piece that thought came up that I want to come
Yeah,
back to.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so I liked working with the students in teaching high school one on one.
Mm,
I was my second year teaching, my like 3 weeks into my second year teaching. I'm teaching a lesson, and as I'm teaching this lesson, I have this split experience where internally I'm like, I can't believe I'm fucking teaching this again. This is terrible. This is so boring. Oh my God. And externally, I'm not skipping a beat. I'm continuing the
yeah,
lesson. Students have no idea I'm having this existential
yeah.
crisis. And because I've said, well, I put off being a teacher for all these years. In my mind, that's who I was going to be. I put that off to become a computer programmer. And I did the 20s expat thing, living outside of the country for a couple of years, teaching English. And like that was all in a way of me not stepping into what I knew I was going to do for my life, which was being a high school teacher. So I have this moment thinking, I can't believe I'm fucking teaching this again. And then like, this is so boring. I'm bored. If I'm bored, the kids are going to be bored. What the
Right.
fuck am I doing?
Right.
And I'm supposed to be doing this for the next 30 years of my life.
I'm going
What
to
the
die.
actual
What the
fuck?
actual fuck? Yes. Yes.
And like, if I don't do this, then what? And I had this internal breakdown. Again, nobody outside of me knew. And like, I had this complete dissociation. And but what I liked most about teaching was working with the students one on one.
Yeah.
Was whether it was with a math issue or whether it was a personal issue, when they confided in me, when they came for after help after school, and we started talking about whatever, or helping a
Right.
kid who had anger issues and he broke his wrist because he punched a locker. Like, that is what got me most. That's what I was most excited about. So the woman I was dating at the time suggested, why don't you go to acupuncture school? Because I was receiving acupuncture treatments. I should say this.
Oh,
I was receiving acupuncture treatments for years and loved it. And it was a thing that I did for myself. It
yeah.
was healthy. I loved how it felt.
It's life
And,
changing. It's life changing when you have a acupuncture done. Yeah.
ah,
Especially
and
if it's for an injury in specific, right? Like, I have received acupuncture, not with needles, but with lasers,
mhm,
and it literally changed my life.
mm,
So like I can easily see how one would have a transformative experience receiving the treatment and go, I need to help others to do this.
yeah, I got there eventually. It was the acupuncturist. It's really interesting how similar we are, and yet like these interesting points where like, nope, our stories are just
Yeah, yeah.
slightly different. I was the practitioner I was working with at the time, the acupuncture I had a shamanic background. So that would come into the sessions. Like, she did a soul
Wow.
retrieval one session, and we were talking about guides regularly. Every session was kind of coming in. And this is while I was teaching high school. I would leave teaching like once a week, and I'd go to her office on my way home. And it just started spiraling and getting interesting for me while I was like, I can't be doing this math thing much longer. And so my girlfriend at the time said, why don't you go to acupuncture school? That way you can work with people one on one the way you really like. You can get paid for it. And you're free from the rigors of academia, and you're free from rubrics and parent teacher conferences and all of like the grading and the
Yes.
stuff of like trying to, you know, herd cats to
Yeah.
try and learn algebra. I'm like, they don't want to do this. And so there was something to be said about, it was a mixture of both worlds of like what I liked most about teaching, and um, in something that felt really good for me as as a receiver.
Yeah.
And so that's where I went to acupuncture school and said, okay, this is going to give me a licensure to be able to coach people, to be able to help people move forward in a way that feels really good to me.
Yeah. Because you're also a life coach. So you have all of these sort of like building blocks of wellness that you are able to work with clients on. So, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Can you go back to where acupuncture and shamanic work dovetail?
They both have a really lovely perspective on relating to the natural world. They both have a really lovely understanding of what's happening internally is reflected externally and vice versa. And so, for example, we're recording this now at the start of March, and in New England, between March and May, we have this, it's warm and then it's cold, and then it's really nice for a couple of days, and then we get a snowstorm,
Yes.
and we go this back and forth. And the way that people individually experience that in my office. They come in and they say, "Oh, I had this job opportunity and then I got taken away," or I just met this person and it didn't happen," or "I woke up feeling really good for like a week and I don't know what's different. I feel really shitty today." And like,
Wow.
what you are experiencing is what's happening in the natural world. You are experiencing, we're going through this huge energy shift of back and forth, and it's just working through you. and through your particular constitution, when then I can explain it through Chinese medicine, through we're stepping into the element of the wood element in Chinese medicine is one of spring, and the wood element wants to grow and expand, and if it can't, it gets frustrated and annoyed, and it's the planner and it's the visionary, and so people will have issues with their eyes this time of year. People's migraines will be up, people's stress levels will be up, and I can explain it from a Chinese medical standpoint along with, hey, look what season we're in, look what's happening outside.
Mm-hmm.
Of course you're going through this. Of
Mm-hmm.
course this is what's happening.
Mm-hmm. You know, that is so wow. That kind of just really hits home for me. You know, as a witch, I've followed the witch's calendar, which is the wheel of the year, and we look at the quarters and the cross quarters of the solstices and the equinoxes. And there are certain things in terms of energy shifting that happens during that turning of the wheel, right? So there are times that are for planting, there are times that are for harvesting, there are times that are for going inward, and we are coming out of that hibernation cycle, right? Where around the new year, around January, there's always the talk of like, oh, resolutions and new year, new me, blah, blah, blah. And all the witches are like, fuck no.
No,
This
no,
is
no.
not the time for new beginnings. This is the time for rest and recuperation and going inward and dealing with your shit and hibernating and caring for yourself. And then as we go into where we're again, as we're recording this at the beginning of March, we're going into Astara, which is, you know, the spring equinox, and we're all talking about rebirth and balance and growth
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
emergence from that hibernation cycle. And so when you examine your life, you notice, oh, the cycles of my life match up with what's going on
mm-hmm,
in the wheel of the year. You know, new
mm-hmm,
opportunities come at, for me personally, new opportunities come at certain points of the year. Big things, big transformative things always happen for me in October and February. Always, 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 whether they're good or bad, they
mm-hmm.
always happen in October and February. What were you going to
What's that
say?
about? What's that about for you? Like where does that fall into your understanding of why October and February?
So for me, October is for witches, right? October is your new year. It's the end of the year, it's the end of the cycle.
Gotcha.
So October
Uh-huh.
31st is actually witch's new year. And then we start November 1st with winter, right? So at the end of October, you're through the harvest season. You've taken everything in that you could take, and now it's done, right? And you're going into winter. So it's time to kind of hibernate. So sometimes there's loss.
Mm-hmm,
It's a very transformative time in terms of we lose a lot of souls. People pass
mm-hmm,
away,
mm-hmm,
things end at that time. And then for me personally, February is a huge, there's always something that happens in February. Again, good, bad, or otherwise. And we are dealing with, at February, we deal with Imbolc, which is the halfway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. It's February 2nd. It's the very first fire festival. It's about that warming of the earth, even though you
mm-hmm,
can't see it, right?
mm-hmm,
It's
mm.
because this calendar is based on old Celtic calendars. So in if you were in, you know, the Highlands, this is when things would, you know,
Mm-hmm.
these little crocuses would start coming up in February, not March, or not the end of March. So you would start seeing that warming, that new birth. And sometimes new birth also requires devastation. Sometimes
Yes.
new birth
Yes. Not sometimes,
requires,
almost always.
correct.
Like almost always that wheel of life, the cycle. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There is something, there's always something transformative that happens in my life around February. It is this year, it's a family medical issue. Last year, it was a flood. When my house burned down, it was literally on Imbolc,
Mm,
literally the fire
mm.
festival. And I was like, oh,
Uh-huh.
my house is burning down. Okay. Yeah. All
Careful
right.
what how you know your relationship with the element of fire.
Correct. Correct. And it's that transformative fire. It's that
Yeah. Yeah.
burning down and rising from the ashes, and it happens over and over and over again. So we
Something I
see those
just
cycles, right?
yeah, something I just learned like last week is that there are some seeds, I think there are some pine cones that will not release their actual
Mm-hmm.
seeds unless there's intense heat, unless there's fire.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
see fire as destructive, but I like it as this transformative
Yes.
so much better as this we need like that heat is necessary
Mm-hmm.
to generate something new.
Mm-hmm.
As destructive as it is, and I'm not at all being flippant to your loss or
No,
anybody's loss out in California, Los Angeles, who's lost their life or lost
certainly not.
their livelihood as a result of that. Not losing it, just speaking purely from the spiritual
Yes.
perspective of this.
Yes. And then like for myself as a kitchen witch, uh fire is really important. We cook food.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So even if you're cooking food in an
Mm-hmm.
electric oven, that's still the element of fire. It's still heat.
Mm-hmm.
It it takes one thing and transforms it into something else,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, it's interesting. I don't want to get off. I don't want to get off on a tangent about elemental magic, but like you were talking about, you almost drowned, and
Mm-hmm.
I lived through a house fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like these huge things having to deal with elements. In my world, water element is about compassion. It's about
Mm.
going with the flow. It's about not resisting, right? It's about surrender.
Yeah, I will tell you why I'm laughing. So the actual moment, so in that experience where I was in the water, I was 19 and I had the arrogance of and the testosterone of a 19-year-old white boy. And so here I was, and I was like fighting the current. Like, I'm stronger than this. I'm going to swim to this rock. And I got pulled back underneath. And like, I'm going to swim and I'm going to swim as hard and fast as I can because
Mm-hmm.
look how strong I am. And like, wouldn't work. And I didn't get anywhere. And what actually saved me, or what rather, when the river saved me, was when I let go.
Yeah.
And I didn't let go willingly. I let go because I had nothing left in the tank, emotionally, physically, mentally. I was
Yeah.
done. And I had this moment of surrender, as you're describing.
Yeah.
And I let go, surrender by sheer, just without any choice. I went to that place. And then the river just naturally carried me out of the eddy back into the main body of the river, and I was fine. Physically. Mentally,
Right.
I was
Emotionally,
fucked
you'd be
up for a
dealing with that
while.
shit for the rest of your life. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
100%.
100% to your point around that, like fighting the flow. And that's an experience that continues to resonate with me. That's an experience that continues to teach me now. And it's been
Mm-hmm.
25 years since that happened. Just last week, something came up across my life, and I was just kind of like, oh my God, this is exactly the same thing that the river was teaching me 25 years
Mm-hmm.
ago. There's the next layer of letting go now. There's the next layer of surrender that I have to give now. Next layer of trust that I don't know where I'm going, and I
Mm-hmm.
have to let the river of life take me where it's going to go, even though I'm completely lost. I've had
Yeah.
like these continually to show up literally 25 years after that happened.
100%. Because our souls still need to learn the lessons, right? So if your soul still needs to learn the lesson,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be hit with that lesson over and over and over again until you learn it. And I'm sure that's something that you do with your clients, like,
It is. It
right?
is. And I will also say that um, with some lessons there's a learning. Others I think there's layers to learning. I
Yeah.
don't think I'm going to be done with learning about surrender and going with the flow. I think that when I reach the end of my life and I am at that point, the way I project that I will get there, that it there's that next teaching of surrender and trust. I imagine, as spiritual as I am, that I'm going to be really scared shitless at that point. There's a part of me that
Yeah.
will, and there's going to be a moment of like, how do I surrender now, knowing or trusting that I will be taken somewhere else? I don't think I'm done with that lesson. I don't think it's a matter of like, I've learned it or I haven't. I think there are
Yeah.
layers to it that will continue to unfold over the rest of my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're always learning those lessons, and the lessons are infinite. And anybody who's like, oh yeah, I got all my shit together. I know, I hate when you have a conversation with someone, they're like, yeah, I know. And you're like, well, if you knew,
No,
you
but
wouldn't
oh,
have to,
but do you?
but do you? And like, again, if you knew, these lessons wouldn't keep smacking you in the face.
Right, right.
Right. And
Yep.
sometimes it's really, really obvious. Like, I know people that constantly get into the same relationship. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same relationship. A woman who is with a guy who treats her exactly the same way. It's all the same drama. What she's attracted to. is that discomfort and it's over. And then you get out of that relationship and into the next one that's exactly the same. Oh no, this time it's going to be different. And you're like, are you different? Did you learn? Then
Yeah,
it's not going to be
right.
different. Right.
Have you
So
done your shadow
I'm,
work? Have you actually stepped into that and done
yeah,
and had the tough talk internally?
right. Like, so I think that these lessons of nature,
Hmm.
the cycles of nature, are there to teach us. And these elements are there to teach us. And before we started recording, we were really talking about doing our own shadow work and like literally sitting in those lessons, right? Sitting in the discomfort, sitting in the change of going from this phase of your life to the next phase of your life. So let's just change the narrative here a little bit. If I was your client and I'm coming in to see you
Hmm.
for shamanic work, for acupuncture, I mean, listen, I'll give you, I'll just be honest and give you like my fucking life right now, right? I'm going through a family issue. There's a medical issue in our family, which seems to be better now, but like that's a weight. And then I'm dealing with some transformative shit in my business. It's been really, really hard. It's been a very dark time. Been kind of working through that. I have a bunch of physical ailments, right? I have autoimmune diseases. I have celiac disease. I have tons of stomach issues. I'm always kind of working on that. So I'm your typical client and I come in, and how do you look at me and say, here are the lessons of nature. This is what I'm seeing. This is the
Mm.
treatment that I give you, or this is
Hmm.
the path that we take to get you through these lessons and into a healthier space, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally.
So I'm going to give a I am going to give a little bit of a roundabout answer before I get that because I want to ask a little bit, come back to like how to dovetail, how do shamanism and acupuncture dovetail,
Yes, yes.
and I also want to tie that back into math also,
Oh,
and
I
it
love
just
it
sort of hit
so
me
much.
in this
Yes, do it,
conversation,
do it,
just
do
hit
it, do
me.
it.
So for me, when I liked math and when I still like math, it's because there's a basic order. What is the, how do
Mm,
we understand this beyond labels, beyond terms? What is the actual basic thing? So core shamanism says, okay, they might call it mudong in Korea, or they call it curandero in Peru, and they call it um, um, shaman in Siberia. They have these different terms, but we're all talking about magic. We're talking about working with the ether, talking about the
mm,
is. And so the is and the ether has these rules, has these tendencies, has these cycles, has these understandings. Like this is what I strive to understand. So whether it's through acupuncture, whether it's through shamanism, whether it's through Chinese medicine, through meditation, through qigong, through the Akashic records, through this other energy work I've learned called sacred anatomy, energy medicine, it's all understanding what is this ether and how do we understand and play with it. And that's why Vedic astrology works, but also, you know, North American astrology works, and there's
yeah.
all these different interpretations. They all work, but it's because we're just describing like the is in a slightly different way. So I come in with all of this knowledge. So you come into my office with this. I start with, okay, where'd you grow up? Tell me about your parents. Tell me about your siblings. Are you in a significant relationship? Have you been in the past? What's your story there? Do you have kids? What do you do for work if you work? What do you do for fun? What are your hobbies? That's like the first 30 minutes that we're talking about before we even say why are you here? Because I want to understand who you are. And usually in those 30 minutes, I already have a decent idea. So if you're like, oh, I'm going through this, I've had this over domineering mom and my dad wasn't there. I'm like, okay, immediately I'm going to go both in shamanism. I'm just going to little things in my head. I'm like, okay, where's your connection to the feminine? Where's your connection to the planet? In Chinese medicine, we were talking about where's your connection to the earth element? Where's your connection to the spleen meridian in particular? How are you processing things? Like, okay, well, I've got digestive issues. Okay, well, you're having difficulty processing things. And start going in that route. So the coaching and the acupuncture and the shamanism all dovetail seamlessly, and also understanding your journey based on these basic things, these basic rules of the is of the ether, of like being here in a three-dimensional earth, the rhythms of the planet, the rhythms of the stars, the rhythms of the month, and then what does it mean to be 35 or 45 or 15 and where are you generally in life? What is your general understanding? And it's a searching for patterns, essentially, in when you're coming in. So if you're like, okay, I've got autoimmune stuff fascinates me. It's like, why is your body thinking that your body's an enemy? Why are you fighting yourself? And it's not necessarily to say that it's not overly reductionist just to say, well, you have a strong critic, so your body's attacking itself. It's way more complicated than that. But dollar to notice, we're going to be talking about how you talk to yourself. We're going to be talking about your self judgment. We're going to talk about self blame because that is, you are attacking yourself and your body's mirroring that.
I literally, as you're saying this, I'm getting a pain in my stomach.
Oh,
Legitimately getting a pain in my stomach because my body knows what you're saying is 1,000% true. Is that fucking crazy? No, I
I
guess
love
it's
it.
not.
I'm crazy goosebumps. This is what I get to do. I do enjoy this side of my work a
Right.
lot, is drawing these connections, which are, in my mind, super simple and straightforward, and get to see someone be like, oh, of course. I didn't even think about it. Like the way we use language. I'm having a hard time processing this. Like, of course you have GI issues. Like I have a hard time letting go. Of course you're constipated. Like I can't
Yeah.
let go of this relationship. It's like,
Right.
right, sure.
Right. Oh my goodness. It's just very fascinating to see someone like you taking all of these different elements of spiritual practice, of Chinese medicine, and combining them into what I would say is an art for healing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just one thing or the other. It's all of these things and you're using them all together to help others. And I wonder if it's not too personal. Um, can you share with us how you have been working this for yourself as well? Because in my experience, healers need healing. And the
Mm-hmm.
best healers I know have been through some of the absolute worst shit and
Mm-hmm.
have healed themselves through that. And then also used the work that to heal others to heal themselves.
Yeah, so it's a dual-edged sword for me personally, of because I know it, I try to analyze it when something shows up, and I need the medicine of time to really understand what it actually is
Mm.
a lot of times. And sometimes I can see very clearly what it is, and it still fucking sucks to have to
Yeah.
walk through it. And like I can't just be like, oh, I see the pattern, I'm okay now. It's like I see the pattern and like, fuck, I have to
Yes.
walk through these feelings, and
Yes.
I have to own up to some of this shit. I have to face some things that I haven't wanted to face. Some of it is like, I knew that was there and I've been putting this off and I've been kicking the can down the road. Another of it just kind of blindsides me, like, oh my goodness. So for instance, the all in the last 10 years with the political climate
Ugh.
and the
Ugh.
all of the stuff around, like, the how do I want to phrase it? It's like the Me Too movement and the loudness and the spotlight, I should say, the spotlight that's been put on misogyny in the world. I've always thought myself like, oh, I'm an enlightened guy, I'm a nice guy, I would never do those things. And then it's taken me to be like, where do I have internalized misogyny? Where have I
Mm.
internalized those lessons for myself? Where have I seen women as less than? Where have I looked at these things? And it's been hard as fuck to look at that,
Wow.
to
Wow.
acknowledge it, because that's not me. That's not me. I'm like, oh no,
Mhm.
oh no, I owned a lot of that. And so
Mhm.
it's it's a dual-edged sword of, like, it does make me a better healer because I can see it in myself and I can
Yeah.
be more empowered and more self-aware and help other people with those same things. And it fucking sucks.
Right. Well, that's what we were saying. Like we're all so fucking enlightened and we're all so self-aware. We go to therapy and we do our meditations and we do all this stuff. And so we see our shit. Sometimes we see our shit clearly, right? I mean,
Hmm.
when it's smacking you in the face, you see your shit very clearly. And it's the worst. Like I it's the best and it's also like I wouldn't want to be blind to it because I
Hmm.
want to be the best version of myself for myself and for the people that I love. But at the same time, like I would really like to just be not self-aware for like 24 hours, for like
Yeah.
20, just like 24, just have a break mentally and not be like, okay, why is this coming up for me? How do I
Yep.
work through it? No, maybe I just need to be angry. And I do think that there is a balance there that often we as spiritual practitioners, we do try to reason or meditate or spiritualist our
Yeah.
our darkness or
Bypass it. Hmm.
we like you said that word bypass, we bypass it with, oh, but it's okay because I'm going to do this ritual or I'm going to work with this medicine or whatever it is, and we don't realize you just need to go to fucking therapy. Like
Yeah.
you can't,
Hmm.
there's no crystal that's going to make you less fucked up. Like you just need to
Or
handle it.
right, or you can do that ritual, you can work with that medicine, but actually work with it.
Yeah.
Like actually step in and do it,
Yes.
and not be like, oh, I'm going to just go take a bunch of mushrooms and all of a sudden my problems are going to be gone. It's like, no, you actually have to sit with the shitty feelings. You actually have to reconcile with your own shit and your own fucked upness. Because as spiritual as we are, and I like to think myself as pretty spiritual, and I don't like the term advanced, but I feel like I'm doing pretty well if I look at
Mhm.
peers. And also, like, I'm plenty of fucked up human. I
Right.
still am human, and I still have
Right.
anger, and I still have jealousy, and I still have pettiness, and I still, like, this is still part of my life.
Yeah.
So there's the teaching in it, and the big teaching for one of the big teachings for me is accepting those things and saying, okay, I am all. I am the light and the dark. I
Mm-hmm.
am kind and I can be an asshole. Like I am thoughtful and I can be completely selfish. Like
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that I am both those things and I have the
Mm-hmm.
capacity to be both these things, then I can make an empowered choice as to which of them am I actually doing in a day. But
Mm-hmm.
without doing the shadow work, then I'm just going to automatically go to a place of denial or blaming others or some of the other stupid petty shit that I've done in my life, which is
Yeah.
just human.
Right.
So there is something to be said about um, the term that came up for me is like this is my medicine to offer. It's my medicine to take, and then it's also my medicine to offer others. So my inner work around the misogyny that I've had and probably on some level still have like the energy for me around that and the work that I do that is not only for myself so I can be a better person, I
Mm-hmm.
can be a better energy in the world, but then I can help move the needle for other men and help move the needle for men in general and like the masculine in general. That's my medicine to offer the world.
I think it's so important. And like I should have led this conversation talking about that topic and talking about men and how especially cisgender white men can be wonderful and supportive and emotionally secure and look at themselves in a critical way. It's something that you and I had talked about when we first met, all of 3 weeks ago. But but
Yeah, by the way, to all the listeners, this is only our second conversation in this lifetime. Like
I
this is the
don't
only second time that we've
I
actually talked
I don't
together.
believe that at all because I feel like our hearts, like we vibrate at the same frequency. And so like I feel like our frequencies have been like in constant communication. But like and we now we're running out of time and I can't really like get into all of that topic with you, but that just saying like, hey, listen, we all have this garbage inside of us. We all grew up in ways that give us preconceived notions. We grew up looking at certain media or hearing certain messages from, family or television or books or whatever it was about ourselves and about the world that is around us. And
Hmm.
so much of our magical working and the working that you're doing is unlearning,
Yeah.
unlearning. And then I wanted to just comment on something you said about like I am both light and dark. I am, both kind and an asshole, like all those things. I think I had those moments, particularly, of reflection around race, right? and going, oh, we all of us, white folks from New York, we're like, oh, I'm not a racist. I'm not a racist. There is, like you said, there's inherent misogyny, there's inherent racism. These things
Hmm.
exist in our society. So it is absolutely ignorant to say it's not something that we all deal with. The thing is to recognize and choose differently, right? If you have that one thought, like you said, I have that one thought about, I'm sure I still have these misogynistic tendencies towards women, or, that I don't even realize they're there. But once you have the awareness that that could be there, then that thought comes into your head and you go, oh, whoa, where did that come from? That I don't
Hmm.
actually feel like that. And
Hmm.
then you choose to act and react differently. And that's
Yeah.
how we can be better. That's how you look at your garbage, acknowledge it, say I'm not perfect, and change it.
And that's the difference between, for us spiritual practitioners or spiritual teachers and leaders, that's the difference of what makes someone a cult leader or not.
Mm,
Is that, is I am very transparent. I am not perfect. I'm very transparent. I do not have all the answers. I'm very transparent that my job is to help my clients find their answers for themselves. And I don't care if a client comes in one week and says, all right, my marriage is over. Next week they come in, actually, I think we're going to give it another chance. Next week, no, I think it's over. It's kind of like, I'm not going to say, but you said this last week. It's my job is to help you figure out your own life. My job is to help empower you, or help you recognize your own empowerment
mm,
so that you can make whatever choices feel best to you as you move forward in your life. And so I bring in the perspective of soul. I bring in the perspective of shamanism. I bring in perspective of Chinese medicine and connecting to the earth and these cycles to help you better understand yourself,
yeah.
so you contextualize yourself better. And now I have more information. Now I can understand myself better. Now I can make different choices. That's my job. I'm not here to heal anybody. I'm not here to fix anybody. It is purely a reflection that I'm offering. And the cleaner I can be internally is the better reflector I can be for you.
Dave, you're amazing. You're amazing. I'm so, so happy. I feel like the reason I was at that event was to meet you. Like,
That was fucking great. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I was there to meet you. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Well, I'll just
So,
have to come back then. That's fine.
or we're just gonna have to like go out and eat food and I don't know, get together
Okay.
and be friends in real life. Hello.
I love it. I love it. I love every bit of that.
Make that happen. Okay, so Dave, tell everyone how they can follow you online, how they could make an appointment with you, where can we find you and how can we stalk you?
So my business is called Lionheart Medicine. And so lionheartmedicinellc.com is my website, and Lionheart Medicine LLC is my handle on Instagram and the Facebook. So that's the greatest place to reach out to me. I will answer emails, calls. I do text, but generally not for new people. It's probably better to actually have an actual conversation first. But that's the way to reach me. And yeah, and
Do
I
you
do a
do
lot of distance work too.
that's a
I see
question.
people in person here in Western Massachusetts and in Eastern Mass. I have an office in North Andover, but I do distance work. There is nothing I can do in person that I can't do remotely, and I'm including acupuncture in that. I can do acupuncture. I can stimulate acupuncture points remotely with needles made of light.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, so we'll put all of your links and everything in the show notes so everybody can just go find them, follow Dave, follow his well, you have a podcast too, Dave. Tell everybody
I
about your
do.
podcast.
Yes, my podcast is the Inspired Being podcast.
Mm,
And it's evolved over the years. It was me and my business partner. We would sit and we would have all these conversations. She's a psychotherapist, and we would sit and we would have these conversations about healing and all these different aspects. And I'd come from a shamanic and acupuncture standpoint. She'd come from an Akashic records and witchy and psychotherapist standpoint. And now it's evolved. She's taken a little bit of a step back from that. So now it's involved, and I've had other practitioners on, and we talk about all sorts of things of what it means to be a grounded, inspired human being walking this planet.
I love it so much. And we can find that podcast through Lionheart.
Apple and Spotify. Yes, and
Okay.
it's on you can get through it to my website on my website.
Fabulous. So we'll put all those in the show notes so everybody can click and like and share and find and stalk you and blah blah blah. Okay, you ready for your last question, my friend?
I'm ready.
Okay, I ask to everybody that comes on the show.
Okay.
So the question is, if you could have me cook you one magical meal because I'm a kitchen witch, what would that meal be and why?
Well, I would have to go Italian food because you're a Long Island Italian girl. Gotta go with that. And my honest answer is it's got to be with heart. So, like, what you cook with heart is what it is. So, I would say probably my one of my favorite Italian dishes, or which I think you actually said I think you might have said this in a different episode that actually is in Italian, is clams and linguine.
Oh, linguine with
Uh,
clam sauce.
yeah, that's one of my favorites. I haven't had it in a long time. Um,
Really?
but but really, it's be more about taking in your heart and magic that you put into your food.
Well, that's, I mean, listen, everything I make is very, very loving. And, especially if you were coming to my house for dinner, which you totally should just come, like you
Okay,
should
we'll do
just
that.
come, just come.
We'll make that happen.
If you were coming to my house for dinner and you requested linguine and clam sauce, you're getting like real fresh clams. Like we're going to steam them. There's,
Hell yeah.
like it's going
Uh-huh.
to be like
Hell
a
yeah.
real bit, like huge chunks of garlic. You're going to have like
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of lemon, fresh lemon wedges on the table. Like that's just going
I'm
to be a thing.
salivating. Yeah.
Let's just do it. I thought you were going to say like manicotti. I don't know why I was feeling like you were going to say like you need to have a manicotti, which is how we say it. It's not manicotti. Um, it's
Can
how.
I tell you, I worked one of my jobs. I worked as a waiter at a pizza place in Hackensack, New Jersey, or Bergen, Hackensack, New Jersey, and they was run by real Italians, and it was not mozzarella. It was not
Mozzarella,
mozzarella. It was
mozzarella,
mozzarella,
mozzarella.
and they made it fresh every Monday,
Yeah,
so they would get the curds and the
yeah,
water everywhere. Yeah, no,
yeah,
mozzarella. Yeah,
mozzarella. And
yeah.
it's funny because that's how my grandma would say it. And mozzarella,
Hmm.
manicotti, gabagol. Like these are the things that. Anyway, now my New York is coming out. Okay, David Ironman, you're amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here. You are simply delightful, and I heart you big time, bestie.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness, I love you too. This is great.
and until next time, everyone, I wish you all the blessings and so much gratitude.